Hey, Kevin here at Skylabs, doing another video. I don't think vintage audio gets enough credit for having as big of a hand as it did in the vinyl revolution. And I'm gonna tell you why. So before we get into this topic, please do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button. Make sure you're getting notifications for future videos coming out. We do have a lot on the agenda. We're currently revamping the website, skylabsaudio.com. There's a place where we'd love for you to submit pictures of your audio system with a brief description so other people can drool. We've got lots of things on the schedule. We're gonna start doing live streams. We're gonna add a YouTube membership program. We've just got tons and tons of stuff going. I'm dead tired trying to get all this stuff done, but I'm doing it because I'm having a really good time. And it seems like you awesome people in YouTube are wanting more content about vintage audio. And that makes me happy because I love vintage audio. Let's get into this video. Thank you very much for watching. Let's do it. So you're probably saying, oh, some pretty bold claims there, Kevin. What makes you think vintage audio had such an important role in bringing vinyl back? And this is it. Vinyl records started picking up in the early 2000s. And really by the mid 2000s, everybody was switching over to Pandora and streaming and iPods and MP3s and Napster and downloads. The record labels were scared to death and people were wanting to have a material, tangible form of audio again. And it turns out that vinyl records was the perfect solution for this. However, there was a couple massive hurdles. You know, in one sense, if you remember how bad those MP3s were in the beginning, they were terrible. I mean, they sounded horrible. And unfortunately, I think CDs kind of got lumped in. You know, when people that aren't into this hobby as much as maybe we are, you know, when they heard, you know, that digital file sounds terrible, you know, and they're talking about MP3s, and then they hear that, you know, CDs are digital, they kind of think they're the same, even though they weren't. There's a huge difference between a really crappy MP3 and a CD. So in one way, I think CDs kind of got a bad rap for being digital like the MP3. But this is where it really helped vinyl records. You know, like how I said, when people were looking for a tangible way to purchase their music, it also happened that that tangible way was something different than they were used to. It was analog music reproduction. People wanted to own their music again. And for those people out there that say, I don't see why people would want to collect vinyl records over digital downloads, the Times UK shows that 1 in 5 people that own records or purchase records do not own a record player. When a band resonates with you or music resonates with you, there's something in us that we want to own it and kind of make it ours. And when everything is streaming and digital downloads, sitting down on a couch, putting on a record, and enjoying that music is something to behold, especially when the pandemic hit. Because once everybody watched The Tiger King and everything else Netflix had to offer, we were bored. And it turns out there's this massive music catalog to go out and discover. And people did. So now you're saying, okay, Kevin, now tell us how vintage audio comes into this situation. Well, this is how. In early 2000s, when people were starting to get interested in turntables, everybody kind of realized we don't have a lot of options here. Most of the consumer electronics brands had abandoned turntables. I'm talking Onkyo and Denon and Pioneer. There were high-end units and then really cheap turntables. But there wasn't a lot of options in a lot of different price brackets. And what happened was people would find vintage turntables and they would take it home and they would try and hook it up to their 2003 AVR with no phono preamp and discover they needed a phono preamp. Now, I think at this point, even the electronics industry thought maybe vinyl records was a fad because you really didn't see them starting to put preamps back into the receivers until about 2016, 2017. And this is when people with that problem of being able to play a record through their AVR system discovered that, oh, you know what? Grandma's got that old dusty 70s gargantuan receiver down in the basement, I bet that'll play vinyl records. And what do you know? Not only did it play vinyl records, but it actually still worked and it looked incredible. So vintage audio really filled that void until the electronics industry could realize this wasn't a fad and we need to start making powered speakers and putting phono preamps inside of our receivers again. And interestingly enough, this was a long enough of a gap for vintage audio to really grow legs, because what people found out was that not only was this equipment really well made, but it sounds really, really good and it's still serviceable. And that's something that you don't get with a lot of other things in history. You know, not a lot has changed with the way we move analog audio to a stereo system to our ears. And that, what we've used for the last 45 years are RCA cables. So if you get a Sonos player, a streamer, a Bluetooth receiver, you want to plug your phone into a vintage receiver, all you need is a set of RCA cables. You don't have to do some crazy conversion. We're not talking about HDMI here and trying to hook it up to a tube TV. We're using the same audio cables we've been using for the last 45 years. A lot of people don't realize that. We get that all the time. We have people come into the shop and they say, you know, I'd love to go vintage, but I'd like to have my CD player hooked up to it. Or I'd like to be able to listen to my phone. And they don't realize all you need are RCA outputs. There's a million ways to do it. So I do think vintage receivers and amplifiers played a huge role in vinyl records coming back the way they did. And I think enough to where people are still wanting to buy them now and use them now in preference to a new piece of equipment. So I don't know, just a different perspective on it. Maybe you'd already thought about that. I was just doing another video and that side of the topic popped up and I thought, well, you know what? That's kind of interesting too. So I thought I'd do a quick video on it. Don't forget, top 5 vintage Marantz receivers. Put your list down in the comments. Also, make sure you subscribe. There's a lot of really cool content coming up. I really appreciate it. I can't thank you enough. We'll see you next time.